simply the first time I sang it was when the youth pastor of our church requested it. It's a song from a movie that he liked, and that's the only reason I ever even learned this song. And the day he mentioned it, I didn't know what he was talking about, but it came back to play later in life, and now the song forever holds a new meaning to us. Some of you that are on Facebook, you know, everybody's got the social media thing now. If you followed, you may have noticed that Brandy and I had a godson by the name of Zander. The easiest way to tell Zander's story is a lady from our church that writes in the paper managed to get his story put in the paper, and I'm going to try reading what she wrote, and I may fill in some that we know that was more to the story than even she knew as she wrote it. But I'll make it through the story if I read it instead of trying to recall it. Miss Sandy Bishop wrote, "I think we all need a reminder from time to time of God's infinite grace, mercy, and goodness. I believe this is just such a reminder. This is a short story of hope, sadness, joy, love, and courage. I was recently a somewhat first-hand witness to many of these emotions through our church family. But the most overwhelming of these to me was courage. The courage of a baby who came into this world and immediately began to struggle with life's adversities due to health issues, and the courage of a mother and father in the journey that they took with this tiny baby. Little Zander Christian Young was born into this world on December the 26th, 2012, and departed from this world on February the 4th, 2014. Zander was 1 year, 1 month, 1 week, and 1 day old. Over the past 13 months, many prayers have been lifted up on behalf of this sweet family, and these prayers have been answered time and time again. The first time Tiffany and RJ brought Zander to church, I looked into that baby carrier and saw the sweetest little face smiling up at me. That million-watt smile gave me the insight into courage he was already displaying. I told Tiffany that I could tell he was going to be a fighter, like the gladiators of old, so I nicknamed him Zander the Great. And he lived up to that name every day of his short life with a courage that I dare say most of us could not display. That greatness showed through on his sweet, innocent face and his courage to fight against all odds. If I'm not mistaken, when Zander was born, he spent the first 5 weeks of his life in a hospital. Mom and Dad going back to take turns visiting. This would be Brandy's best friend all through school, growing up. And these are very dear people to us. To say that he fought was beyond measure. They told him when he was born he would never come home from the hospital. And we know he had 13 good months. At the funeral, Tiffany, who if you know is very quiet. Tiffany does not speak. She does not like crowds. She's very unassuming of things sometimes. But she was able to sit beside Zander and tell us her story of the last hour he had here on earth. She told about praying that the Lord would just allow him to pass on peacefully in his sleep, and he did. She told about the feeling of a refreshing breeze that came through the hospital room when the angels surrounded Zander and took him home to be with Jesus. She told about the peace that came over her knowing that their baby was in the arms of Jesus. And RJ stood before us all and prayed the closing prayer at the funeral of his son. What a picture of God's grace at the home-going celebration of Zander's life. Tiffany told me on a Sunday morning, or told us the Sunday morning after Zander had passed away, that there had been over 29,000 viewings of their Facebook page entitled Prayer for Zander. If anybody, I was wearing one probably last year when I was here. If not, you may have seen them. We wore blue bracelets for Zander that just reminded us to pray. His Facebook viewing was so big that we've learned since then that the day of his funeral, we did a balloon release. And we know there were balloons released in Singapore, around the world, just on the day of his funeral. What an impact this little boy had on so many people in such a short time. Please go to the Facebook page and read her entire inspiring story that Tiffany had wrote. God had truly turned RJ and Tiffany's test into a testimony. Miss Sandy writes, as I was writing this, I looked up at a note on my bulletin board, and this is what I read. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. Well, RJ and Tiffany did commit to the Lord in their journey with their baby every step of the way, and now he rests in the arms of Jesus. Little Zander was dedicated to the Lord at our church last June, which would have been a month before we were here last year, and a letter was given to him by his godfather, Adam Buckingham, that was supposed to be sealed and opened on his 16th birthday. The letter was urging Zander to come to know the Lord if he had not already done so by the time that he opened the letter. Adam was proud to stand and read the letter at the funeral service and said that he knew that Zander would now want that urging to know, that we would want that urging to know the Lord to apply to each and every one of us that was there at the funeral. Please pray for Tiffany, RJ, and Michaela, his big sister, and Nate, his big brother, and the rest of the Zander's family. And she encourages you to hold your loved ones a little longer and a little tighter, and always, always tell them you love them, because you know not when the Lord may call them home. Folks, that funeral for that baby may be the greatest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen a funeral in an altar call. People from the church flooded the front. I was asked that day to sing 2 songs. There was a third song supposed to be sang by another young man from our church who got caught up and couldn't get home from college. So somehow I sang his song and the other 2. Something that day told me that I just know how our church is and how especially our age group is at church, and I knew that we would probably pray before it was over with. So I just put an extra song on the CD and told the lady that ran our sound, if something happens or you need any kind of extra music, there's a 4th song on there, just let it play. Well, when the 3rd song ended, which was supposed to be the end of the funeral, I was standing here singing, and I was looking at hundreds of people standing at an altar. And I got to sing the 4th song. And that's the song I'm going to sing for you tonight. And I know Zander's not done, because we have a couple in our Sunday school class right now that I remember them telling me. The wife came and she prayed at the altar that day at the funeral with the rest of us. She's known us all real well. And when she got back to her seat at the end of the funeral, her husband told her, he said, I think that was mostly their Sunday school group that started that. I don't think you were supposed to go up there. And she told him, if that's the way their Sunday school class is, I want a part of it. And I don't know that they've hardly missed a Sunday since in our group study time. This little man still is reaching people. He's been gone since February, and he's not going to die. He refuses to. It's been an absolute blessing to have him in our life. I was blessed to dedicate all 3 of their kids to the Lord, or to when they were born. They're a big part of our life and our family. To be quite honest, if it wasn't for the baby dedication of their oldest child, I wouldn't be at Island Baptist Church today. That's the reason we go to church where we go to church. We went there to sing for them. And this is where we are now. Without them and their first daughter being born, I wouldn't be on this trip to Oklahoma, and I wouldn't be here with you. But I still stood at a spot, because when they couldn't get a hold of our pastor that night, I had just went on call for my days off at midnight. And at midnight 20, the phone rang, and I really thought I was going to work. And when I rolled over, it was RJ's number, the dad. And when I answered, it was a woman on the other line, and she said, is this Mr. Buckingham? And I said, yes, it is. And she said, could you hold on just a second? And I knew the day before they had taken Zander to the hospital for breathing problems. It was common. He spent the first 5 weeks of his 13 months in Jackson General Hospital before he ever came home after birth. Shortly after that, he spent an entire month in LeBonner Children's Hospital in Memphis, while their other 2 children lived with people from our church and lived with us when we could. My wife spent the night with them while their kids stayed with me. Our church, it's brought a unity to our church that I've never experienced in another church. I just know he's touched so many lives. And as I stood there that night, I got ready as fast as I could and went to the hospital once we got someone to watch our children. And to walk in, to be there for that moment, what do I tell those people? These are our best friends. And we were also blessed on the same day that Zander died. After Zander had passed, because we didn't want them to have to walk out of the hospital with an empty baby carriage and the oxygen tank that he normally carried, Brandy and I chose to go downstairs and load their things in their vehicle so that they would not have to walk out of the hospital and put that on their mind. As we met the hospital administration, or as we went by the administration desk, we ran into some extremely familiar people. If I didn't tell you guys when I was here last year in July, we found out while we were here in July that my sister was pregnant. After 5 miscarriages, she was finally pregnant and one was going to make it. And it was her that we met at the administration desk. I had to tell my sister we were already at the hospital for losing a child. And 15 hours later, we welcomed one into the world. Our best friends lost their son the same day my sister, or I became an uncle, and my sister had her first child. It's, to even stand there and tell her that that happened almost broke her down because she knew Zander too. And so I again leave you with the question, what do you tell these people? They're not going to see their son until they reach heaven and they're with him. Sometimes it feels like we're just in this life and we're just waiting. We're waiting to see people that are gone. We're waiting to see people saved. It just feels like we're waiting. And that's why this song hit us so hard after the funeral, because we didn't know what to tell RJ and them. And then the song told us on its own. I'm waiting on you, Lord, that I am hopeful. I'm waiting on you, Lord, though it is painful. But patiently I will wait. I will move ahead, bold and confident. I'll be taking every step in obedience while I'm waiting. I will serve you while I'm waiting. I will worship while I'm waiting. I will not faint. I'll be running away, even while I wait. I'm waiting on you, Lord, that I am peaceful. I'm waiting on you, Lord, though it's not easy, no, but faithfully I will wait. Yes, I will wait, and I will move ahead, bold and confident. I'll be taking every step in